Greetings and welcome to the Caregiver Circle. My name is Kelly. I wanted to make this video today to introduce myself to you as well as to introduce to you the Caregiver Circle, which I founded back in 2014 after I was thrusted in the role of caregiving after my dad had a stroke. What is unique about my story is that my parents lived in Ohio, and at the time I was living in New Jersey. And so I immediately, of course, rushed to Ohio to see about my dad as well as my mom and try to figure out how we were going to now navigate this new avenue that we were on. And so I realized that they needed additional care. My mom needed extra support. And so I really was thrusted into that role of caregiving and trying to figure out how to maneuver these things from a distance, which I did learn. And I learned a lot of things along the way. But I've really, over the years, things have been a little silent because the last few years I have been focused on caregiving, that I have not had time to do some of the things that I was doing prior to that time for the Caregiver Circle. And so I want to talk to you about the year 2025, which turned my entire world upside down. But I also believe it has given me a new sense of purpose. Roughly towards the latter part of 2024, my mom started having some cognitive issues. There were some changes that we noticed with her, and then she actually, talked to us and said there were some things that concerned her, that she was losing time. She felt like she would be in one place and space, and then the next time, all of a sudden, she's someplace else, not knowing how she got there. And so that was concerning. We were concerned. My dad was concerned, and my brother was concerned. It was just the four of us. And so I had scheduled appointments for her, and there was one appointment we really had been waiting for, and that was with Brain Health of Cleveland Clinic. And so I had scheduled this appointment, but she could not be seen for months. And so her appointment date finally came up, which was March the 7th. And so on the 6th of March, I flew to Ohio. I flew to Cleveland so that I could assist my dad with her because she had just gotten out the hospital the night before, and I wanted to make sure she got to this appointment, and I was there to ask any questions. And so that morning, my brother picked me up from the airport, and we immediately drove to our family home where my parents lived. And we called maybe when we kind of got close to the house to let my dad know, hey, we'll be there soon. You can start unlocking the door. But there was no answer. And then I called, we still weren't getting an answer. And by this time, we had arrived. We are knocking on the door to no avail. We went to the front to knock on that door. No answer. My brother went to the back window where my dad's room was, and he saw my mom pull the curtain back. And when she pulled that curtain back, my brother could see that my dad was deceased on the bed. Probably the most devastating day of my life. You're flying there. I just know I'm gonna see him and see them both, and it wasn't like that. And so immediately after that, and it can only be but by the grace of God, my brother and I managed to get my mother to that appointment with less than 24 hours after my dad passed. We got her to that appointment, and when we got there, she went through a battery of tests, and it was confirmed that she had the beginning stages of dementia. So here it is, within 24 hours, two devastating blows that we faced. And now we had to plan a funeral. It was just a lot. So fast forward, we planned this funeral, and the day after the funeral, my mom was rushed to the hospital because she was not responsive. We get to the hospital, and they said that she's gone into a state of shock. Her body was shutting down, And they asked us who was the decision-making party, who makes the decisions. And I said my brother and myself, and the doctor escorted us out the room because we were in the room with my mom and my 2 sons and my daughter-in-law were there. And so he talked to us and explained to us what was happening. I thank God she survived that. She was in intensive care for 10 days. But by the time she was ready to leave the hospital, at this point she had to go into skilled nursing. So I am flying back and forth from Charlotte, because at this point I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I want to say sometime in June, after dealing with the nursing home, which is aka skilled nursing, a family member was visiting my mom and said that she seemed like she was in a lot of pain, and she noticed that her legs and things were swollen. So I contacted the facility and asked them to please call an ambulance to get her to the hospital. She gets to the hospital, and probably within 24 to 48 hours, the doctor let me know, because they were trying to assess what was happening, but they let me know that they saw swelling on the brain, and I was in shock. And so a few more days later, running more tests, the neurologist called me, and that by this point, we are now towards the latter part of June. And so the neurologist told me that here are your options. We could go in and address the swelling, but she probably wouldn't survive the surgery, and there would be a lot of pain involved and a really difficult recovery. And the other option would be to give her steroids. And someone who already has dementia, who's already 81, it would not be pleasant. It would not be good for them. And it still would not cure. It would give her some more time, but the outcome would not be good. And if we did nothing, she had about 4 weeks. So this was devastating to us. We just lost our dad, and here we're finding out that here's this tumor that came out of nowhere. So in between that, as I said, I was flying back and forth because I was dealing with some of my own health issues. And a couple of weeks later, I was back in Charlotte to see a surgeon because they had found a tumor in my small intestine. And I saw the surgeon, and my options at that point were to have these shots that would shrink the tumor but would not cure it. And I would have to have these shots for the rest of my life. Or we could go in and we could have surgery to remove it. However, the issue was that the tumor was in a very difficult spot. It was surrounded by blood vessels, and I couldn't even get a biopsy without it being major surgery. And so after meeting with the surgeon and praying about it, I felt led to go ahead with the surgery, and I felt like this was the surgeon who was supposed to do it. However, I'm dealing with my mom, and that for me was my priority. And the doctor was so kind, he was so considerate, but he did say to me, listen, I understand and I sympathize with your situation, but at some point you are going to have to be selfish. And that was rough hearing, but I understood where he was coming from. But for me, my mom gave us everything. She did whatever she could. She was a great mom. And my priority was her. And I was going to do whatever I had to do to take care of her and to be there for her. And so I told him I'm going to have to wait. I cannot do this. And I know there was a risk. They were concerned about it metastasizing and going to a different area. But I had to trust the Lord. I prayed about this. The way I even found out about this tumor was totally on accident. But we know, for those who believe, I know that it was God who allowed me to see it, or to discover it, I should say. And so about 5 weeks later, on August the 10th, my mom did pass away. And now we're arranging another funeral. And this time, because of scheduling, that funeral happened to be on my 57th birthday. But in my head, and people asked me, was I okay with that? But to celebrate my mom who gave birth to me on that day, I felt like it was the highest honor that I could do. And so it's okay. My mom and I were super close. Family, just such a tight-knit family. And so at that point, and something I did not share is that we knew, my brother and I had discussed moving in with my mom, because at this point my dad is gone and he was really providing the care for her. We decided to move back into the home and take care of her. So I gave up my place, he gave up his place, he moved in. He actually, everything was already in motion. So even though she passed away, it was too late to make any changes. So I had all of my things shipped to Ohio and put into storage, and my brother moved in, but my mom and my dad are no longer there. And even at that point, I still had to go back and forth to Charlotte for treatment. And I'm in this really odd place because I'm trying to figure out life. And I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to land and what I'm going to do. Like, there's so many emotions that I'm dealing with. And so I'm so grateful to the Lord for keeping me and holding my hand through this process. I ended up having surgery to remove this tumor on February the 9th, 2026, and I'm still recovering. I'm doing a lot better than what I was. But I felt led that this was the time to share my story, and not just share my story, but to bring the Caregiver Circle back, but this time enhanced. This time, not just dealing with current caregivers, but even past caregivers. What happens after caregiving is over? Because you give so much of yourself. But though I also wanted to add the grief component, because how do you go through and how do you navigate the road of grief? And then having to deal with your own health issues. It is a lot. But I believe that the good can come out of my story. While it has been devastating, I am still in the throes of grief. I thought that now was the time to start this YouTube channel, to bring back the Caregiver Circle, because I am all about trying to help someone else. As a minister, I've always been, very transparent, even though it is uncomfortable at times. And I will say this, I tried to do this without showing my face because of my own insecurities. But I believe that the call and the purpose is bigger than my insecurities. So I have to just move past that and do what I need to do. So I hope that you will join me on this journey, that you would participate, that you would subscribe. Don't like if you don't like it, but subscribe, comment in the section, share your story. You can ask me questions. I'm here to help any way that I possibly can. And I just thank you for joining me on this journey, and know that you are in my thoughts and in my prayers as we navigate this thing together. So again, welcome to the Caregiver Circle. I look forward to serving you.